Hour 2 Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. Half an hour away from opening puck drop of the NHL season. Chris Johnston will join us here in a few moments. Leafs Habs tomorrow night. The 7 Canadian teams get started tomorrow night. The baseball playoffs continue, and it's hour 2 here. We had Austin Matthews last hour, so we were chatting with him for like 20 minutes. Then we got into some of my takes that you guys disagree with that, quite frankly, I don't think are that hot. And I guess, in a way, maybe Ross Atkins and the Blue Jays, they pulled off what they were hoping to pull off, because we're an hour into this, and we still haven't even mentioned the news dump press conference on Saturday morning.
Let me unpack this, though. Did he throw Schneider under the bus?
I think he did, in terms of he didn't want anything to do with it.
Right. He was like, I was shocked
from that
too.
standpoint. Yes.
Well, wouldn't you think a guy in that position would only do that? Like, regardless if he's above Schneider, isn't it risky letting Schneider get on some podcast saying this guy was full of crap, it was totally his idea? Like, if it's a bold-faced lie, isn't that a really risky play for a guy in his position?
Yes. I think, do we have the clip? Why don't we play it here quickly for reference purposes? Because I'm sure a lot of people did not see it or hear it live. I was on my way downtown to go see the Wiggles play, and the Wiggles always,
I was horny for it. I had to find it. I looked everywhere.
So did I. I found it. I made sure to find it because I wanted to hear this thing too. This is what Atkins had to say, because a lot, like 50% minimum, was about the decision to pull Berrios and put Kikuchi in. Here was Ross's explanation on his role in that decision.
As it relates to the meeting, those meetings are John Schneider's meetings. He has a group of individuals that he prepares with every day. His process routine, his preparation was no different that day. The group is the staff that's on the field. It's not the front office. I do not attend these meetings, and I certainly do not make those decisions. When that decision occurred, I found out about it when you did. When Yusei was getting warm in the first inning, it was obviously very clear that we had a strategy to potentially deploy. There was no plan to concretely deploy that. John Schneider made that decision to deploy that, and that's what occurred.
So I'm sure, to your point, he is not lying about not being in the meetings.
Yeah, but he could. What he's not portraying is, I wasn't there, but I told that analytics guy that this is what's going down.
I think it's semantics, right? Like, he's not lying. I think he's telling the truth that John Schneider is in the meetings. John Schneider is in the dugout. John Schneider has to walk out and make that decision.
But he ordered the hit.
Well,
that's basically, it's like a mob boss in the background who ordered the...
I think it's more so, it's not that acute. I think it's more of a team philosophy where they come up, They operate a certain way based on how the front office operates.
Right.
And John Schneider is well aware that he has to operate under that umbrella. And that's where it gets kind of sticky, where Ross can technically claim, like, hey, I wasn't in there. I don't believe for a second he was surprised when Berrios was coming out, because he went on to suggest that. And I also think it's the nature of a manager in 2023 that, it doesn't matter what the truth is. John Schneider has to be the one to take responsibility. If you want to come back next year, that was your choice, basically. And you let everyone know, if you want to be a manager in baseball, you do not throw your GM under the bus, ever. No. Even if he moves on somewhere else. You can't do it if you want to get another gig, because you can't be known as a guy who's going to throw your GM under the bus.
What kind of leadership play is that? Does this guy... you know what? When Ross comes on and talks to us, he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a guy... He's always been
good to the show.
He's been great.
Always
Absolutely
good.
Does he talk around actual issues? Yes, he does. But I don't know. I always wonder to myself, I like Griff a lot. He's an old school baseball guy. I think if he sat down, if Griff was still with the Blue Jays, he would have prepped him to kind of how to... does he know how he comes across? Everyone in the city hates him right now. Well, and that started before that meeting, Hayes, and it's really true after that meeting that everyone in this city thinks that he's a scumbag. That's just the truth, man.
Well,
he's hated.
Yes, I think again, professionally, it's not a personal thing. It's as the GM of the Blue Jays and
I
him
get it. They
representing
can't
the team.
stand him, though. People can't stand the guy right now.
He's
I don't
taking
know
a lot
why
of heat. Well, I think that probably feeds into why he answered the way he answered, though. I think he knows that. I think that sounded like a GM who's been here a long time, and people really don't know where he's taking this
But
team.
why wouldn't a PR guy cue him up and say, look, man, just bite the bullet here and take this one for the team and say, you know what? I had something it was my call, and I sent it down, and we learned from it. It's just like anyone else in baseball. You admit that you used the steroid. Jason Giambi's a great example. He came out and said I took steroid. Everybody forgave the guy. Because he just said, you know what, I screwed up. The guys that tried to hide and lie about it, and like A-Rod, everybody just started hating their guts. It's like, just come with the heat. Stop just piddling around with all this outside. It's like he's so deathly afraid of the truth, which is like, we can't find a way to win, and I'm butchering this right now, and I'm not taking any responsibility for what happened on the field. That's not leadership from a guy at the top.
No.
And everybody sniffs it out, and everybody can't stand him right now. Awful PR move. Somebody should have gotten his ear and said, there's no way in hell you should do that.
I don't think it was helpful whatsoever, the presser by Ross Atkins. I don't. I think he tried to make a point clear that is accurate. They didn't score any runs. He said that a million times, and that is 100% truthful. I get the Berrios to Kikuchi thing was absurd, and it blew up in their face, but they didn't score any runs.
Yes, there was his avenue to say, you know what? That was my call, and we only allowed 2 runs. Yes, they came in when Kikuchi came on the mound, but we couldn't score any runs, so it's a moot point.
Yes.
People would have said, okay, at least this guy's got some stones.
Well,
but he didn't
true.
even do that.
Yes, I think the approach in hindsight being 2020 was we couldn't produce any runs, so we felt we had to be perfect. We collectively as a team made a decision that was a mistake, and we shouldn't have done it, but it happened, and even when we did it, we still didn't score any runs.
Yes, he had an avenue to get out of it.
There's it out. Because that should have, you talk about PR, his plan should have been, I'm going in there and burying the bats. Because that's why they lost.
Yeah.
Not Berrios into Kikuchi. They scored 1 run in game 1 and no runs in game 2. If you score 1 run over 2 games, you can't win. You cannot win series.
You know what?
So,
I wish this was on a Monday because on a Tuesday we could have wrote our own Ross Atkins speech.
That would have been great.
The
We all do our own
prep.
speech.
True.
Yes.
The all PR prep and our own individual spin on it.
Because he's 100% right that the run production was not there. But when you dance yourself into a circle about the other stuff, and then it leads to a lot of confusion about communication and who's running what.
Hey,
on
your
top
speech
of
would have
what-
been exactly what Ross said anyway, so it would have been a dumb segment. You would
Possibly.
have separated yourself from everything.
That's not true. I'm
It
a leader.
was John Schneider's fault.
I'm a leader.
Thank you for coming.
I would
just,
never do that.
Seeing that,
Never do that.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Just if there was mistakes made or the order was called, just say, hey, we as a group we did this, but I was aware of it and move on.
There's
But you're right, the
communication.
bats
We're all on
need
the
to be
same
better.
page.
Like there's a lot of everyone's culpable here.
But
including
11
myself.
a.m. on a Saturday long weekend, I think in a way it got the job done. I do. I think it was a news dump, and it actually was a successful one.
Yeah.
All right, here's Chris Johnston, our TSN hockey insider, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. What's happening, CJ?
Oh, I'm still a little hot about this whole Jay situation. So
Tell me what you think about it, CJ. Like the way that he portrayed himself, the timing of that presser, your thoughts as not a media member, Jays wise, just a fan.
just not enough ownership or leadership. That was all I thought. And that, the fact
Thank you very much.
The fact that he said, I found out about it at the same time as you. I mean, I just think in a situation like that, obviously there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes with teams, but you got to stay together and present a united front. And you had the GM of the team out there separating himself from the manager, leaving Schneider to twist in the wind. And I think it was an awful look. And the fact he had a few days to prepare and still that was the best he had. I mean, I'd be looking for a new front office. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well, there you go, man. I like it. There's a take. There's a
It's the
take.
same thing I said.
Yeah, but CJ did so more eloquently.
Not me.
Yeah, you're more eloquent, CJ. And listen, Shapiro's going to come out. I don't think they can get rid of Atkins now after he said publicly Schneider's coming back. So he's already spoken on behalf of the franchise that John Schneider's going to return.
You have no idea what goes on behind meetings. Like sometimes people just say, Schneider, you're staying. Guys can get gonged at any time, man.
Well, look at the Leafs. I mean, who honestly thought if Dubas was gone, Keefe was going to be back? And he is. And it's kumbaya. Everything's all good. Like, that's my impression. CJ, the Leafs, I think, feel pretty happy with things, and they feel pretty comfortable going into a new season.
Absolutely. And it's funny, Dubas, after last season on the Monday, said he had to think about whether he wanted to be back as GM, and by Friday he was fired. So, I mean, you do never know how these things will go. That feels like 100 years ago now, though, I can tell you, being around camp. Very, very relaxed atmosphere. I mean, like, noticeably different than in the past. And I don't know if I put that, down to just the GM change or what it might be, but this was about as calm a camp as you would find around the Leafs. Certainly not a lot of controversy or negative headlines, and if anything, of course, a few positive stories with Fraser Minten making the team and seeing some of these young guys come in. And so, this is as relaxed and calm as I remembered a season starting. I say that with full knowledge that if they lose a couple games in a row, we'll be freaking out by next week. But at least to start the year, I feel like the team's in a good place.
Yeah, you mentioned Fraser Minten, and we haven't really discussed it today. We've talked about him a lot over the last few weeks, though.
Right.
He had a really good camp. He played a lot of preseason games. And I think it adds a different element to the room as well. Like like you said, it's calm. The new guys have found their role. A lot of these players have been here for a long, long time. The core players have been here for years. I'm sure that there's some hope from Tree Living, from Keefe. You put a kid in like Fraser Minten, it kind of just a different ingredient, isn't it? Like, for opening night, I think a lot of people are going to be focused on the third-line center, and I can't recall the last time we said that.
Right, and then you've got Matthew Nyes playing on his wing, right? So you've got a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old, making up two-thirds of the Leeds third line. And just because of the nature of where Toronto's been, I mean, go back to 2016, of course, they introduced a bunch of rookies to the lineup. But since that period of time, this hasn't been as common of an occurrence. And I think it's a little bit of a flash into the future, no matter what happens, no matter where this spring goes. I mean, this organization is going to want to be finding more players to come in and support the core. And this is sort of the first time you're starting a year with that in mind. And so I think it does bring a sort of breath of excitement. I'm sure even their teammates are curious to see how they perform and hold up. And it's funny. The young guys aren't the young guys anymore. I mean, this is year 8 for Matthews and Marner, and Nylander, had part of a year 9. So, it is high time, I think, for the Leafs to have something like this. And that's what made the story with Minten so unexpected. It's just, we're not accustomed to seeing a rookie break through, and, they forced him really into making a trade of Lafferty over the weekend in order to create the room to keep him around.
How shocked are you that Martin Jones wasn't taken on waivers?
Well, a little bit, just having watched the way this goes. I mean, the Leafs seem to lose a third goaltender to waivers every year, whether it was Aaron Dell or Curtis McElhaney back in the day, Kelvin Pickard at one point in time. I mean, it's been something that's happened, and I thought it was creative, the fact that they put that little signing bonus into his deal that it needed to be paid today. It wouldn't be a preventative measure entirely for someone else claiming him, but it would give teams something else to think about or make sure that they wanted him. And I think it's really nice for the organization to have that kind of a security blanket, in their number 3 role now, because we've all seen enough to know that Ilya Samsonov, we'll see if he can get through a full season healthy. Joseph Wall, great young player for the team, but there's every chance, I suppose, that if his performance slips or if he's got his own trouble, that the Leafs will probably need at least 3 goaltenders to get through this season. And having someone who's logged as many minutes as Jones has and even played so many NHL games last year, I think is going to be a big benefit to them, that they're not, today now looking around saying who can we bring in for that kind of experience in the AHL.
CJ, some guy asked me this at the gas station today. I was embarrassed. I had no idea. So this guy clears, so that means he can go up and down no matter how many times.
Who, Jones?
Yeah.
Well, there's rules.
Every time he goes up,
days.
like the guy was asking me, I'm like, you know what, bud? I have no idea. So I'm glad I'm asking you about it. How does it work for Jones the rest of the year?
Once he's recalled, he gets 10 games or 30 days, I believe, on the roster before he would have to clear waivers again.
Oh, really?
So and so let's assume everything goes well in October and November, and he's just playing games for the Marlies, and the Leafs need him in December. He can come up and play a few games and still be sent back without waivers, depending on the situation. So, it's a good spot for the organization to be in. And obviously, he signed his contract. I mean, he knew he was coming here to be the number 3 guy, and I do think we'll see him at some point in time, but who knows when that'll be.
With Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. So some signings in the NHL over the last 24 hours. We talked about Winnipeg in the last hour, and I guess we'll begin there. Then we can get to Rasmus Dahlin signing a long-term deal down in Buffalo. But Scheifele and Hellebuck signed identical extensions. They've got 1 year left on their current deals. They both signed 7 years, $8.5 million per. From a morale standpoint, in a market that probably needs it, on a team that might need it as well, considering what's happened there over the last couple of years, how substantial do you think this message is that these guys are sticking around and this team's going to try to stay competitive in the future?
Well, I think it's massive. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can critique long-term contracts and the players' ages and all that. And while I accept that those are fair things to point out, I mean, let's call it as it is. The Jets are not in the same situation as every other NHL team. They're not likely to ever be a free agent destination. And so, I think that they have to have homegrown players and to want to keep guys around. And in both of these cases, I mean, now there's certainly a scenario where we might be talking about Scheifele and Hellebuck both being lifelong Jets in terms of their NHL playing careers, just with, how deep into their 30s each is now signed. And I think on a larger scale, it signals the intentions of the organization, because they just endured a summer and a little bit of the start of training camp where a lot of the local talk was, are they going to blow this up? Is this the last chance? I mean, quite clearly when you make signings of this nature, I would think that Kevin Cheveldaeff will continue to be aggressive and will go out and do everything he can to arm the team with, a chance to make a run this season and next season. I mean, I think it sort of signals where they're at. They're not looking at a rebuild or anything like that in the near term. And so I have a hard time viewing it as anything but positive for the Jets. And they just hope that those players can sustain their performance and be healthy enough to make the contracts look good. But, it goes from where this would have been, they would have been on every trade board that we put up at TSN all year long if they were unsigned, and all those questions disappear in one day.
So, CJ, as far as the Dahlin contracts go, or his contract, and I wonder this, the number's big, and I understand that maybe he's the next in line, and it's a couple years later after Makar, but let's say they went to him and said, Makar makes 9.5, we'll give you 8 years at 9.5. Like, would that have offended him, or... Like, I just don't understand. I just see the 11, and I'm like, man, that seems a little bit rich. Just, I guess, for where the Sabres have been and where this guy's been rather recently, a couple of years ago. Yes, he was damn good last year. I get it. But if the Sabres offered 9.5, would their camp be offended by that?
Well, I can't speak for them, but I don't think that would be an offensive offer. But look, what's changed since Makar signed his deal is all the agents and teams now know the cap's going up by 5% next summer, and it could go up by another 5% the summer after that. And certainly when you're projecting a deal like Rasmus Dahlin just signed that's taking you into the 2030s, you're making an argument to the team that you're going to be worth a certain percentage of the cap moving forward, and that I think that's kind of how you get to that $11 million deal. It is a big contract. There's no way around it. I mean, he's tied for the second highest AAV among defensemen with Drew Doughty and with only Erik Karlsson a little bit above him. But I think he moved the chains forward here for the next, stud defenseman that's going to be negotiating a contract. And, the Sabres are betting big on the player. I think historically, if you look at it, these are the guys to bet on, though. I mean, you're buying all of his 20s, rather than doing it later on in time in his career.
Well, and you add to that, too, it's almost, we were talking about it last hour, CJ, like Winnipeg, Buffalo, some other markets, like he might have had a lot of leverage going, yeah, I might just think of going somewhere else too. Like Buffalo isn't destination one on a lot of free agent markets. And again, that's not taking a shot at it. A lot of people that live there, Marty Biron, everyone, a lot of alumni. But at the end of the day, Buffalo, I feel like you have to pay small market, cold weather, you name it, like tax in certain situations. Buffalo be one of those organizations where you're trying to keep guys in-house, might have to pay that premium.
That's a good point, Noodles.
And he's a good player.
Well, he's a hell of a
He's
player,
like
but
a
you're right.
really
Like,
good
O makes
player.
a good point. Like, how do you get to 11? What if 10 was good enough? I don't know what that is.
If I'm sitting
but-
on my couch and I'm the player and they call me up and they're like, "You want the Makar money? Will that get it done?" I'd be like, "Hell yeah, get that done.
Yeah.
Let's go."
But the agent,
you know what I mean?
the agent might have said, well, to CJ's point, 5%, it's going up. Like 11 million is going to look like 9 3 years from now.
But Noodles, you just brought up the King Daddy Topper point. If he could have said, "You better get it close to that, or it better be that, or I'm out of here." So how do you like that?
Right.
And then as an organization, you've got all this positivity moving forward, and if that happens, you're back at Eichel square one, where it's like, what the hell's going on here? Nobody wants that. Nobody needs that. Can't win with that.
Can't do it.
Who didn't mind that number is his teammate Owen Power, who's not so long for his next contract.
Oh yeah. He
I
was
mean,
licking his chops at breakfast this morning.
This is what happens. I mean, we've seen it in this market with the Leafs, but once you compare yourself to teammates, I think that's a different element in negotiations than saying, "Hey, I'm like this player in this other market." I think when you're comparing yourself to teammates, it can have a positive effect.
Yeah, and Buffalo, they're like Ottawa for me. They got to take another step, right? And we were discussing this last hour, CJ. I think most people think the Leafs are going to get in. Boston and Tampa have been mainstays for a decade, more or less. Florida was in a cup final. Something's got to give. Not everyone can make it. Not everyone can take that next step. I get the impression Ottawa's a half step ahead of Buffalo. I don't know if that's fair or not.
Yeah,
But-
but do you guys think that 5 from the Atlantic, 3 from Metro would be reasonable? Could happen this year?
Yes. Yeah, I think it could. I think Carolina's getting in. Jersey's getting in.
Yeah.
I think the Rangers probably get in.
And then just
Then beyond that, Pitt, the
Pitt,
Islanders.
Washington, Islanders.
Yeah. But even that, it may not be enough, right? If Florida gets in, then Buffalo and Ottawa both can't. If Toronto, Boston, Tampa, Florida all get in.
I don't think Florida's
They
an
run out of
automatic right
time.
now.
I don't
With how
think they are
played-
either.
Yeah, they got a lot of injuries, don't they? Guys
Well,
still
key
suffering
injuries.
key
Montour
injuries.
and
Montour and Ekblad. aren't
Ekblad
they?
are out. Yeah.
Yeah. And who knows? They might have some Stanley Cup hangover there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they're a lock right now.
No, and let's face it, this is why someone's probably going to lose some jobs in April because there's going to be some disappointed teams. There's just no way around it. There's too many expectations and not enough playoff spots on the eastern half of the bracket.
Tell you what, Shane Pinto and Josh Norris not being in the lineup for Ottawa's
That hurts.
It hurts, man. It hurts. I heard Mathot was on with the boys this morning, and they're excited in Ottawa as they should be. New owner,
right.
They took a big leap last year in terms of point discrepancy between making the playoffs and missing the playoffs. But everyone knows what the problem is. It's October, November, December. They get
Dude,
into
you know what the
January, they start
problem is?
rocking. But
Shane Pinto's got to be thinking, I'm a big part of this team moving forward. Why the hell did you have to go sign Tarasenko? Did you need him that bad?
Well,
Because that's his money basically sitting there, and they've got $200,000 to give him. So it was such a key part. And you could say whatever you want about it. As the player, you're saying, everyone else around here is getting paid. And don't give me sample size because Sanderson just signed after playing 77 games. I think Pinto's a hell of a player, and he's got to be saying, even on a one-year deal, do you have any money? I don't know why that wasn't figured out. In such a big year, and I think he is such a big player, I'm not sure why that didn't get sorted out on either end.
Well, they got to do it.
all right, CJ, we'll leave it there.
I didn't want to come over the top on that
I
one.
know.
You said it well, though.
It's a good take. It's
Well,
a
what do
very
you
good
have to
take.
say about that, CJ?
Well, I think that he has the least rights, right? So that's why they're squeezing him. But now he's not there on opening night, and that's not good for the team or for the player, unfortunately.
Well, it's not going to be easy, too. You're going into Carolina.
Yeah, that's a tough way
one.
to start tomorrow night. Before we get you out of here, you started with a great take on Ross Atkins. You want to give us one on Dak Prescott, that fraud and those fraudulent Dallas Cowboys?
Losers.
No comment.
God, was that pathetic on Sunday
Damn
night.
act together.
Pathetic. I'll take it from here, CJ. I'll have takes for everybody when it comes to Dak and the Cowboys. Thank you, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
Talk to you next week.
CJ joins us courtesy of the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. At Dak Prescott, God was he awful the other night.
Dallas Cowboys, if you think
They were terrible.
if you think even with that defense they have a shot at winning a Super Bowl, you're nuts. That San Francisco team was 5 to 7 times better than them at that level.
They were. San Fran, sometimes you got to reverse it and just pump tires.
They're legit.
That's the best team in football right now. They are such a well-oiled machine. Brock Purdy is a stud. Like, he is so smooth.
Yeah.
And McCaffrey's a stud. They've got the best defense in football. They're unreal. The Niners are unreal. But I expected way more out of Dallas, and it never was close. Never even close.
No, they were no good.
And I thought they'd snap out of it and have a better second half. They were worse in the second half. And Dak threw 3 picks, and a couple of them were terrible.
How about your Jets?
Jets with a big win. Win one for Hack.
We did it for Hack.
Did it for the Hack. That's Sean Payton. He has no idea what he's doing.
Dude, that guy.
He's so miserable.
He is Randy Carlisle scratching his forehead when the Leafs crumbled. Mm-hmm. He doesn't know what the hell's going on.
No.
He's better. He just should come out and say, you know what? Hack was right.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Hack
the truth.
was right.
Like, because he looks as bad as the Hack was last year. They didn't get crushed the way Denver's been getting crushed at different times this year.
You know who else has just absolutely got a pair of underpants cooking on him? It's Billy Belichick.
Yeah, it's Bill Belichick.
Dude, he's a 49.7.
That quarterback was...
Mac Jones is a real problem. Did you see Jay did a great post game last night. He had Luke with him at the desk, and they were playing Belichick's post game, and it's just he's so miserable.
Well, the look on his face, and
he hates everybody.
But that quarterback was
Mac
nonsense.
Jones stinks. Yeah, he does. He's a real problem. Like, he is not a starting quarterback.
I think it's a future Hallmark movie. He quits the Patriots and tries to chase down his ex-girlfriend and get her back again. It's a Hallmark. Yes.
That'd be a great idea.
That's a great movie.
I agree.
Yeah. He just says, screw it. Mac Jones sucks.
Yeah.
The Patriots sucks. I'm getting my girlfriend back.
It's obviously deeper than one position. Like, Mac Jones, obviously the line is a mess. Defensively, they're giving up a ton. They gave up, 35 points to New Orleans at home?
Get skunked.
That's scary, man.
Yeah.
Belichick, he's got no answers right now. None. And that Tom Brady, he's not running through that door anytime soon.
No.
Life's a little bit different when you don't have Tom Brady kicking around.
Yeah.
All right. Our best bets brought to you by FanDuel, still to come. Confirm or deny, still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right. Confirm or deny coming up in about a half an hour. Leafs in action tomorrow night. We caught up with Austin Matthews a little bit earlier on. We'll revisit that chat later this afternoon. NFL season's been wild, man. My Packers just couldn't get it done last night.
That was a good game, though.
It was a good game. A lot of people want to know if you made it to Vegas or not.
I did not end up going. I ended up going to see family, so I didn't. I had to pivot, and I'm very sad because.
Pivot.
Well, think about it. You two and that game last night.
Packers, Raiders.
And I had my goon buddies sending me pictures and stuff. Like, their seats, they've got season tickets. Their seat are in the lower bowl, like center field, like solid.
Basically, you wouldn't be sitting here today.
Well, I would have been Bernie Lomax, which is fine. I'm pretty good. My voice goes rough. What you guys know, my voice goes rough.
No, you couldn't have done it.
I had a flight.
You can't
plan.
speak.
Believe me, I had the flight plan. I was leaving at 6 a.m. through Denver, landing at 3 o'clock.
Stopover out of Vegas?
There was no direct that would get me back for the show.
I understand.
You would have said
understand,
two
but-
words, and the guy to your right would have said,
Get the
let's
hell
go
out
to
of here.
commercial. I have to straighten some things out. If we would have come back, and you would not have been sitting there.
Yeah. Noodles, something came up. He had to leave. It's
I
all
was
good.
planning on, like, I had it all planned out, and then I just had to pivot and fly somewhere else. But at the end of the day, I was sad because I was getting these pictures.
That's
and
the
stuff.
worst. That's
And
the
it's
worst.
like, hey, and literally in the picture, there's 4 guys and the 5th seat empty. That's my seat.
That was your
That
seat.
was my seat, right?
That was your seat.
And it is what it is. But yeah. But the game ended up.
Yeah, it was a good game. I mean, the home team won. There was a ton of Packers fans there, which you would expect.
Was there
Packers.
ever?
They really travel. They're one of the best 3 or 4 traveling teams and public teams, right? It's not people that literally live in Green Bay necessarily. It's people from all over North America that love the Packers, and Vegas is a destination.
I thought my
Clearly.
Partsy would have sniffed that one out, that Vegas is
No,
doing
you
that.
know what I noticed there? Because he wasn't prepared. You talk about stats, you talk about expected this, expected that. I'm picking up on
do?
Yeah, well, you do in terms of you mocking it more often than not. Luke Willson, he comes off as a guy who's just shooting from the hip, and he's one of the best in the business. We love Luke.
Yeah.
But he's, I think, a deep thinker, and I think he's highly analytical in nature. Because if you'll notice, when we were doing the picks on Friday, he didn't realize we were off on Monday, so he had to make a call, Packers, Raiders, on the fly.
So you're saying under the gun he can't make a pick with just kind of...
Exactly. I'm saying the guy doesn't have the stones to make a correct call when he's under the gun.
Why don't you watch your mouth talking like that?
Straight
Because
facts.
if it was pick one, and like if it was like never seeing a guy again, I'm taking my Partsy and you're gone.
Well, I mean,
If it
you
was
guys,
that situation.
Sure, you can say that all you want, but I'm telling you, if more games get thrown on him last second,
Dude,
you talk about
but
the
there,
underpants.
there you go again with your
Underpants.
Look, dude, your underpants. We shouldn't even talk.
Mine
what
are
they
fine.
should be.
They are
No, they're
brand
not.
new, bleached right
But you,
out of the packaging.
You gather an opinion on a one-off. This guy had one situation where he was in a bit of a rush, and he botched the pick. And now your assumption is
Look at you,
that
Ross
this guy,
Atkins. Why aren't you included in that loss?
Yeah, he
You're
botched
Ross
the pick.
Atkins.
Yeah.
You just Ross Atkins, John Schneider. In this case, John Schneider's Luke Willson. Why don't you take some
Wrong.
responsibility? Why don't you step
all
up and
I'm
take some
saying-
responsibility?
Okay, I should have stepped in right there.
Thank
you know
you,
what?
Ross.
It was on me for not saying Partsy. You were rushed and you were wrong. And
You're right.
Let's go in a different direction here.
That was your Berrios to Kikuchi moment.
Yeah.
And here
That's
we
right.
are 3-4 days later, and Ross Atkins is throwing him under the bus.
just under
I'll
the
tell you
bus,
what,
too.
at 11, 2 and 1, I'm still pretty confident in Owen Wilson. I will say that.
You should be. I
Two
can't deny
butcher
it.
jobs is not a bad deal.
I can't deny it. You're picking a lot of winners.
Yeah.
You're picking a lot of winners.
There were some good games on the weekend.
Yeah, there were. I mean, the Sunday nighter, the Brock Purdy for MVP stuff.
Yeah.
At some point, he deserves the respect for the
Damn
statistics
right
he's
he
putting
does.
up.
Isn't he making like 800?
He makes nothing. Not like relatively
Yeah,
speaking.
like
he makes
relative-
nothing.
yeah.
He was the last pick of the draft. It's okay. Not saying this is an exact equivalent,
right.
but it's a Brady vibe. Like Brady's 6th round pick. Drew Bledsoe was the 1st overall pick. He
I
gets
know,
injured.
but there's also Trent Dilfer as a comparison.
Yes.
A great defense in Baltimore, the unsexy Trent Dilfer that just kind of gets the job done. There might be some kind of flashes of brilliance, but it's just, at the end of the day, it's Trent Dilfer.
Yeah,
Maybe that's the way people view it.
Well, I do think that that's how they view it. And I think if you're asking me to pick what's more likely, he has a Brady-esque career or Dilfer-esque career, I will say Dilfer. Don't get me wrong. But also in the modern game, you can't do what Dilfer did. Dilfer just, he was handing the ball off. He would throw the ball, 15 times a game.
Right.
Try to move the chains a little bit. Purdy's throwing for touchdowns, man. And he's slinging the ball around. Like legit,
Right.
like impressive statistics. And what I'm saying is not the exact, because he's not built like Brady. Brady's 6'5", 230, chiseled. Purdy's not a big dude. But the story of out of nowhere, great coach, great team, how lucky are they that they fell backwards into this guy? And now he looks as if he's going to lead them to the promised land. And if he didn't blow his elbow out against Philly, like there's a chance he's sitting there with a ring today.
Yeah.
He needs a guy like Dan Orlovsky to go on ESPN and say, this guy is the front runner for the MVP to make a statement. That's what that guy needs,
It just
to be honest
seems
with you.
like it's more likely that McCaffrey gets it before him.
What about Tua?
Or Tua. I'm just saying within like San Francisco alone, it's Shanahan's the genius. McCaffrey's the guy that can't be stopped.
Right.
Trent Williams, the best left tackle in football. Like you get so deep into it before you even look at Brock Purdy. And I'm just curious when that's going to turn. Like how much more does he have to do statistically? How much more winning before you say, man, this guy is like legit.
God,
And I don't dispute he's propped up by a great coach, a great system, and a ton of talent. There's no disputing. I'm not saying he's
playing on a
Mahomes.
great team. All he's got to do is be really good on a good team.
But his statistics are off the charts. He doesn't turn the ball over. He throws the ball when he has to.
You know who I felt bad for? My guy, Kirk Cousins.
Kirk is in trouble.
Yeah.
Like they're 1-4 now. It's over.
Yeah, like I just
Done.
They played pretty well.
They played fine. I thought they got greased by the refs at the end.
I thought so.
You talk about a conspiracy theory. Everyone on earth thinks the NFL's pushing Kansas City all the way to a Super Bowl. And not because of Mahomes. Not because of Mahomes anymore.
Because of
Taylor
Kelsey.
Swift.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What are you talking about? That is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Obviously you're not paying attention. There's at the end of
Get
that
her
game,
to play a halftime show?
No, it's not even about the halftime show. It's that if Kansas City's alive,
Good for business.
It's good for business.
Yeah, it is.
If Travis Kelce's playing, and he's going to get there anyway, he doesn't need the help of the refs of the NFL. It's a conspiracy theory. If you actually believe it, you're a buffoon. But the end of the pass interference that was rescinded, and then the defensive player took his helmet off. That's a penalty. You cannot do that. And the ref is seen on video saying, "Put your helmet back on," and then does not respond when the head coach in Minnesota goes, "Why didn't you flag him for that?"
Yeah,
they could have given him a flag. They chose not to. It's just anyone that loses to Kansas City now is going to say Taylor Swift screwed us.
Well,
which is not.
I think that's crazy.
She wasn't in the building though, was she?
No, she was not.
Yeah,
no, she was not.
Which is, I just felt bad. My guy, Kirk Cousins, 1-4.
That's your guy. You love Kirk.
But it's.
What are you going to do?
I don't know.
What are you going to do?
They're done.
Yes.
Too bad.
I think that's the end of the road for them.
That is the end of the road.
1-4. They're not digging themselves out of that hole. And Detroit keeps winning, right?
Yeah.
Like the Lions are legit. Full credit.
Yeah, and thank you to the guy that tweeted me out because we made a $5,000 bet Detroit was going to win that division, and we shook on it. And he made note of it and said, "Looking good, O-Dog," with a pick of the standings.
Okay. I don't recall that one in particular, but I'm not going to dispute it. I know we had 5 Gs on the Jets and Lions making it, so I feel pretty good about that. But anyway, it's all good.
Well, that's rescinded with Rodgers out. Don't even start.
Oh, really?
As
I'm
if
supposed
it's
to be a book that just hands money back after the bet is placed.
It's not how I describe it is. It's not a live bet if Rodgers goes down.
I see. Okay. Anyway, more on that with Confirm or Deny coming up in about 25 minutes. Mark Shapiro set to speak to the media in a couple of days. A lot of people anticipating where that's going to. You can't talk about renovations for 45 minutes.
Can you imagine if he starts getting into what this new seats will look like?
I can. That's the crazy thing. I can. Hey, I just want to start by detailing how excited we are.
PowerPoint presentation on the. Oh man, if he comes out with the PowerPoint,
I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't put it past him. I think anything's possible on Thursday. All right, Confirm or Deny coming up in about 20 minutes. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
You see that rink in Tampa? 5:30 start, and I'll tell you what, ram-packed.
Good for them.
Ram-packed.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Because you know why? It's a great hockey town and a great sports town.
And Wade Boggs was in the building, too.
Was he?
I thought I read that Wade Boggs was part of the celebrity crew dropping.
All right. There you go.
Imagine.
See, Wade Boggs, how many beers do you think he's had already?
Dude, somebody told me, I don't want to say his name, but Wade used to go to the games back in the day, and they'd have somebody put 24 cold beers under his seat, knowing where it was.
In Tampa, you mean?
Yes. This guy just loved hammering beers.
He loves it. It's Gatorade for him. Like, he loves to hammer. Imagine having a reputation.
Yeah.
Where you
Somebody
have to,
told me that's a legit story. Like, they would catch wind that Wade Boggs wanted some ticks and to be taken care of.
Yeah.
24 cold ones under my seat, please. Thank you.
Do you know how quickly those get warm? Like, if
24, though.
24.
It's not a six-pack.
No.
It's 24.
Not a couple of King cans. We will have 24 on ice under your seat. Like,
Dude,
you know,
if I was the seat attendant and he got up and left and went home, and I looked under that seat and there was 24 empties, I would fall over.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be shocking, and I guess he's found a way to make it all work.
Yeah.
Like Wade Boggs had a great career. He's had a great life.
Had a great life.
He's had a
That
great
is
life.
the only way to describe scenarios like that. He's found a way to make it work.
Found a way to make it work. Yeah. You know how, like, at some sporting events, they do, like, look under your seat
Yeah.
to see if you have the golden ticket.
Yeah, you pull out.
Wade Boggs got a golden ticket. It's 24 on ice.
It's not a foam
Can you
finger
imagine
or
that?
anything.
Look under your seat, Mr. Boggs, and he just lifted up a can of 2-4, like a 2-4 of beers, like it was the Stanley Cup.
So
The
true.
big winner, Wade Boggs. Yeah, that's great. Hey, listen, I don't know why they couldn't show up to actually see a playoff game featuring the Tampa Bay Rays, but they're there to see the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I understand that the Trop is like in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
I took a lot of heat for that I wasn't aware of, traffic in the greater Tampa area. And how dare I possibly take a shot at that city's reputation. So,
It is a sports town. I think it just.
I guess.
Hockey though.
Yeah.
That's
So
the.
they got what? Jonas Johansson?
Yeah, Jerry Johansson.
Jerry Johansson in net. That cannot be overly comforting.
Well, that's the
Tampa.
guy the Leafs hung 9 on. He was in Colorado, played for Colorado that night. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think Tampa's up 1-0.
Okay, there you go. Jerry Johansson with a shutout early.
Yeah.
On his way to his first win as a Tampa Bay Lightning.
Tampa out shooting Nashville 8-2, 10 minutes into the game.
Okay.
So, there
Why
you
would
go.
they not have claimed Martin Jones? It cannot be that $100,000.
No, it's not
that's
money.
There's no way.
I don't know. That's why I asked CJ, and honest to God, like that was out of everything that happened yesterday, which surprised me. The signings in Winnipeg, but I thought Martin Jones was going to 2 or 3 different teams.
Mm-hmm.
That contract, $875, $100,000 signing bonus. Who cares? Teams make it $975. That's an unbelievable contract for a guy who can give you 30 to 40 games.
That's a big win for the Leafs.
It is because
Like,
all of a
big
sudden
win
now
that he's
your
in the
depth
minors.
is not challenged. Tree doesn't have to go and get another goaltender and hope that guy can fit in. He's got him to the minors now. They've got a 3-pack. If Joseph Wall stubs his toe or there's an injury with Samsonov, this guy can come up and he's an NHL goaltender. He's not a guy who's a tweener. The only thing that's tweener about him is his age. He's 33, I think, which
And there's
he still
been
has
all
plenty
kind.
left.
You guys talk about Jerry Johansson in Tampa. There's been crazy stories of goalies. There was a rash of injuries, and Noodles, you will know what team. But Louis Domingue stepped in the pipes, and he won like 15 games in the row or something.
It was Tampa, and they won 21.
That's it. It was Tampa
He
Bay.
played- he won
Louis
21.
Domingue wheeled in there, and he
Feisty
was
boy.
Not the
dialed
best.
in there.
Not the
the
best.
best.
Well,
Not
he won
the
21
best.
games for them that year, I believe.
and then they gassed him.
and they walked away from him. They signed Curtis McElhinney.
I remember that.
Yeah. So they're seeing something. Again, Jerry Johansson, I wasn't as big a fan. I thought Martin Jones would have been an upgrade, but they feel comfortable. Now, we'll see if that changes. We'll see 5 games in, if they're 2
Yeah.
and 3 and they're not liking what they see, they might,
Yeah,
go
we haven't
look at
talked
it.
a lot about Samsonov, right? Like
I don't think he's looked great. I'll be
he's
honest.
not.
I
Statistically,
don't
he's
think
given
he's
up a
looked good.
ton of goals. He's not looked good.
Yeah.
And he's still he had a really good regular season, great regular season, and great home statistics.
Right.
But this time last year, he was fighting for his life. Matt Murray was getting the ball opening night, and
Right.
it was like, if Murray stays healthy, Murray's the guy they probably rely on. You still need to prove yourself.
Yeah.
Now, and this was, I think, what happened to him in Washington, right? He had a good start, and then he started to relax a little bit. The stats started to bloat, and then all of a sudden they decided to walk on him. Like, it's only a 1-year deal, so you would think he's still motivated to get paid and to, like, solidify his career as a true number one in the
Yep.
league.
See what
But
he's
it's not
got,
it's
Hazy.
not a lock yet. Like,
No,
it's
it's
not a
a
lock
help.
that this guy spends the next 10 years in the NHL.
The most games he's ever played in a season is 44.
Right.
The most he's ever started is 40. That's
Let me
half a
guess,
season.
that was last year.
That was last year.
Yeah.
He started 40, and he played in 44 the year before, played in. I believe he started 39. So if you look at it, this net is his to lose, but it's still wide open because can he play 55? Can he play 52? That means Joseph Wall's on the hook for 30. Now, the kid, I think, has ability, like Joseph Wall. But it's not like Samsonov has got 600 games underneath his belt and he's a 32-year-old guy. He's 27, I believe. He's still kind of establishing himself, and to your point, as a one.
Yeah.
He's never been a one.
No, exactly. How often has he gone into a season like as a clear-cut number one?
I guess you would have
Maybe
said 2 years ago in Washington.
His last
he was
year in
the guy. Him and
Washington.
Vanacek went in.
Right.
But that's why they let both of those guys go, and they signed Darcy
Yeah.
Kemper. And you look at it, but Samsonov, he had a good season last year. We'll see what he does this year. But you've got Wall that's going to be pushing for minutes,
But he's young too, man.
and they've got a safety blanket in the minors now
Mm-hmm.
in Martin Jones. So I like their depth from that position. I do.
Yeah, I do too with Jones, but it does feel like that is a story that has been buried a little bit, and I guess we're responsible for that in many ways because of the nature of what we do. But more focus on Fraser Minten and Easton Cowan and what's
Right.
Nick Robertson going to do, and hey, Reeves is here, and there's Domi and Bertuzzi, and as a result, it's like the focus on the goaltending, and if this team takes a step back at all defensively, which I'm not sure they will, but they could. They've been a relatively elite defensive team over the last couple of years. The focus is going to be on goaltending that much more.
Yep.
And if that position goes south on you, that's the most difficult one to rectify over the course of a season.
I agree.
Like it can be troublesome, and I'm not predicting that it will be, but goaltending will be a conversation. It always is.
Yep.
It always is, both positively and negatively.
It has to be. It's the most important position in the game.
Yep, exactly. It will be a topic of discussion. All right, final hour coming up. We'll revisit our chat with Austin Matthews. Confirm and deny still to come as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050, soon to be up on TSN 2.